Facebook right as the Oaks went off. It's the only race I saw today.
Oh, really?
I mean, I looked at the results. I was looking at the
Yeah.
Racing Form app to see who had won, but I couldn't tell you if Shred the Gnar won by a nose or 10, right? So, what?
Who's got PPs?
I gotta take this call.
Okay.
That's good? Yeah, okay. Give it a couple of minutes, a few stragglers, and we'll get started. Thank you all for coming out to the fabulous resort at Summerlin. The remodeled resort at Summerlin, as you guys notice, the neighborhood food hall is just unbelievable. Burgers are great, tacos, Ipazzi pizza, Nomois, Pearl, unbelievable. Just a great job and a credit to Michelle and what she does here for the property, and we're just proud to be a part of it.
So you're just going to take off after this, or do you want to go to dinner?
I really want to go to dinner. I'm going to just have to call Ann and see where things are at. But I really would like to have dinner.
Yeah.
They're so cheap. I just got to see. Fortunately, where my mom is not. It's like 5 minutes from here. So for me to go get Ann and come back won't take long at all.
Okay.
I just won't know if things are under control over there or not yet. So
I got you.
yeah, but yeah, I'd love to have dinner.
Yeah. I'm sure you'd like to unwind and have a glass of wine.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Thank you again, once again, for joining us. You guys know who I am, Duane Colucci, race and sports manager here at the resort at Summerlin. I don't want to take up any of your time. I definitely want to throw it over to Mr. Ike and Mr. Privman. They're definitely the highlight of the day. So, Bob, Jay?
I don't know what kind of a highlight we are, but hopefully we'll be a lucrative highlight. Thanks you all for coming out. It's really been a lot. This is only the third one I've done in a row, but it's really a highlight of the year. I really look forward to doing this. It's a lot nicer to watch the Derby from here and then go get a nice meal than fight the traffic trying to leave Churchill Downs, which I did 39 times during my career. So this is a lot more, I can assure you, this is a lot more enjoyable. And there's no deadline pressure anymore either. So it's really a lot of fun. Bob Ike, you all know, he and Duane have been doing this for more than the 3 years that I've been, but I'm glad
I
that
think
you
our
guys
first year was Justify, so we got
Yeah.
a Triple Crown winner.
Nice.
2018.
Yeah.
And then you joined us 2 years. This is the third year.
This is the third year, yeah.
We go through, pretty much every horse, and we show 5 preps this year, Jay, and I know I broke Duane's heart because I took the Wood Memorial off. I said, that race was run in slow motion. You needed a sundial to time that race, and the winner is not coming out of the Wood Memorial, so we're not going to waste that minute and 50 or whatever it was.
It's like irrelevant now, that race.
Well, at least the Gazelle is now important after the filly exiting the Gazelle won the Oaks today. So there's still some hope for New York racing, perhaps for the Oaks at least, if not the Derby. Bob, you've got some slides, so let's sort of get moving here and take a look at what we think some of the main storylines are for this year's Derby, beginning with Renegade, who is the morning line favorite. It's Todd Pletcher, who's got a stellar 2 for 65 record in the Kentucky Derby. And this horse drew the rail. I wanted to ask you guys, just to start, regarding the rail, now that they have the single gate with 20 horses all in one gate as opposed to when they had 14 and then the 6-horse auxiliary gate, do you think that the rail's not as big a problem, or is it still an issue? And specifically, is it an issue for this horse?
It's still an issue. I mean, you got the right pilot, but I still believe it's an issue. I mean, Irad could definitely negotiate, that first run, but you're looking at the rail, and definitely the gate helps. You don't have the auxiliary gate. You have the 20-horse gate now. So important that they actually added that, 5 years now, 6 years. And it's really successful, but I think it will hinder his chances. You're going to have to make decisions quick, and there's a lot of speed coming from the outside, so it's going to be tough. And you got Pletcher only 2 for 65, so that's a whole nother issue.
And Jay, all the derbies you covered, the auxiliary gate was in play for most of those years. Yeah. The inside was horrible, as you know. You're looking right at it, and horses sometimes would have to make a hard right.
You had to angle to the right to not, otherwise you were going to hit the bend of the turn,
right? Like
at the quarter pole.
So
now you've got more of a straight shot, but to Duane's point, you still run the risk of getting shuffled back if they fold over on you early, and a horse like this could really be out the back.
And the Derby start is, like birds coming out of a cage. You don't know whether they're going out or in, or that the outside comes down, the inside tries to come out, everybody in the middle gets squeezed. So trying to figure out the trip, there's so much luck involved with that many horses. That's why my preference is I like being way outside. The farther outside, the better. I would not worry about the ground loss into the first turn. You've got a long run, and you could stay out of a lot of trouble being outside. So with this horse in particular, I mean, he's obviously shown a lot of ability. Todd Pletcher's record, not so good, but as Jay, you pointed out many, many times, he's run multiple horses like 20 times in the Derby. So that's sort of skewed, but I still think it's an underachieving record in the rail post.
Agreed. Chief Wallaby is a top contender this year. It's Bill Mott and Junior Alvarado, who won last year's Derby, with Sovereignty. Mott, to me, has kind of become the modern-day Charlie Whittingham, I think, when it comes to the Kentucky Derby. He's a guy who's never really pushed horses to go to the Derby. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. To me, if Bill Mott ends up in the Derby, it's because he thinks the horse belongs. He's not like some of these guys who just wants to run every year to have a horse in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, we saw it even with when he got DQ'd in with Country House. That horse, obviously he thought was live. Obviously last year, Sovereignty was live. And this is a horse that, to me, not only off of his races, but having watched his workouts at Churchill Downs, he looks to me like he's very live. What do you guys think of him?
Yeah, definitely very, very live, and especially with the Sovereignty result last year. And, you know, over 4,000 wins, Bill Mott is just amazing. Just one of the best conditioners that I've experienced. And, you know, you could see the apple don't fall far from the tree with Riley Mott. So, you know, you got an experienced training family. This horse definitely was in trouble in Florida, and Gulfstream looked a little gun shy. Didn't want to go to the hole in between the Puma and the winner there. So, you know, he could definitely improve. And the equipment switch to the blinkers, I've been watching this horse's workouts. They're incredible. And I think that could be the difference. He's a major player here. And, you know, I think you guys will agree.
I forgot about Country House, so he's going for his third. How
Don't
old was
count.
Charlie
Come
Whittingham when he won with Ferdinand? And he was in his 70s.
He was in his 70s, yeah.
And I remember the quote from Charlie saying, if I knew it was this big a deal, I would have won a lot, would have tried to win a lot more of them. And then he ended up, you know, going and
He won with Ferdinand, he won with Sunday Silence, he ran second with Strode's Creek
Right.
to go for Gin.
So, yeah, I think Mott is at, you know, that's where he's at now. I thought the job he did with Sovereignty was unbelievable. And Chief Wallaby's making only his fourth start. We'll get into more of the detail on these horses when we watch the films. But the progression he's made in a short period of time is pretty remarkable.
And the last big storyline that we thought was worth highlighting is Brad Cox, who sort of analogous to Bill Mott. Bill Mott won that Derby on a DQ when Country House won. Cox got his only win so far in the Derby when Mandaloun got put up after the disqualification of Medina Spirit. And so Mott always said he wanted to know what it was like to actually experience what it's like to win the Derby, seeing your horse cross the wire first. And Brad Cox has referenced that he'd like to have that happen and have that feeling. Well, he's got two darn good shots tomorrow with Commandment and Further Ado. What do you guys think of Brad Cox's 1-2 punch?
Solid, and Cox is having a monster year. The only thing that's missing is the Irad-Ortiz-Cox combination that dominated Keeneland. So, you know, I really think his horses are in tremendous shape. He runs a tremendous stable. I totally understand that philosophy that you want to be in the winner's circle. You don't want to get put up like Country House, you know, and always have that question mark. You definitely want to get the horse in the winner's circle, and Further Ado was just monstrous in the bluegrass. It's a repeat effort because he had an effort like that at Keeneland as well, but he also has won at Churchill Downs, and we'll discuss these horses further. And Commandment beat the Puma, and he beat Chief Wallaby, so he's stacked.
To me, Brad Cox is he's a training machine. His win was on DQ via medication. When Medina Spirit was DQ'd, Bob Baffert would have been his 7th Derby win. So Cox, you could tell it was very unfulfilling, and it still is for him. I think he's got two great shots. Commandment just fires every single time, and Further Ado has been probably the most brilliant horse of the 20 that we're going to see. So looking forward to seeing what his horses are going to do.
Well, let's get into it. Let's take a look at some of the prep races that we think are some of the ones that are worth keying on. And this is just sort of a little historical chart before we watch some of the replays that Bob's put together, just sort of showing where horses have come from to win the Derby in their next race. One of my favorite things on here is the reference to horsemen's coming from Sportsman's Park, which no longer exists. But the Florida Derby has obviously been a very key race with Sovereignty winning. And guys, to me, going into the race tomorrow, if you're looking at sort of strength of schedule or which region has been the strongest, I think the horses coming out of Florida this winter, at least as of right now, look like they're the strongest group. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, California had a lot of defectors. Bob Baffert had a lot of horses, and they just didn't make it. You know, you have only Potente now that is making it. And, you know, Mark Ladd, it's his first Derby. So, you know, the West isn't well represented this year as it was in the past. But, you know, anything is possible. The Florida races look best. Tampa Bay produced a lot. Gulfstream a lot. I love the way Bob has still got that Wood Memorial last winter produced 23 years ago. So,
Funny
you know,
side.
bashing on, bashing on the Aqueduct Belmont Trail, which, you know, rightfully so. Turfway Park, Animal Kingdom, that was probably the last one that came out of Turfway. So I think, yeah, the Florida preps look very strong this year, but anything's possible. This is a wide open Kentucky Derby, in my opinion.
I agree with what Jay said. To me, it looked like the Florida races were the strength. And what's fun about the prep races is, you know, it's kind of by region. It's like the March Madness tournament. You've got the West, the East, you know, the Southeast, the South. So where these horses kind of, the brackets lead them, you know, they all lead to the Kentucky Derby, coming from this and this and this. When you fill out our brackets, well, now we're into the Final Four. That's sort of like the big Derby preps. I really like the Florida races, both the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. As Duane said, the Tampa races were good. Jay, to me, what's interesting is the Bluegrass has just not been a productive race over the last 25 years, yet you've got one who ran off the screen this year.
And yeah, and that's really one of the biggest handicapping questions tomorrow is further ado a Keeneland specialist, because he ran off the screen when he won there as a 2-year-old last fall. His Bluegrass was dynamic. Can he repeat the same kind of performance at Churchill Downs? He did win over the track last fall, but it wasn't as dynamic a win as we saw him at Keeneland. I'm leaning a little towards him as being able to run back to that race, and the reason that I think he's going to run well again is just having watched him train and watch his workouts. That to me's, Bob, been a little bit of a tell, but that's a pretty daunting stat right there, that the Bluegrass has produced one winner in the last 25 years.
And I like that the Haskell has produced a winner.
Right, that was the COVID year.
That was the September Derby. So, all right, so what we do every year is put together the prep races, and I will go to the video. Let's go to the video here.
Warner Wolf, let's go to the videotape.
Right.
And I started with Renegade, and we sort of went down in post-position order, so that's why we're going to watch the Arkansas Derby first. And 2 horses come out of the Arkansas Derby. Renegade, as we mentioned, has drawn the rail. Duane shorted Bob Baffert, a starter here. He does have litmus test,
I forgot, yeah.
but, you know, not much of a chance in my opinion, but he is entered in the race, and, you know, who has a better Derby record than Bob Baffert? Not too many. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We'll watch Renegade. He's kind of a closer, and you're going to see a horse really finish off his races, Jay. He comes, I think they said he came the last 8th in under 12 seconds.
Yeah, he did, but having been to Oaklawn Park, I can tell you the last furlong there is actually slightly downhill. So that's kind of, it is. So it's not the same kind of final 8th as you'd find at other tracks. But let's watch this race. Renegade will be out the back. He's wearing the orange silks of Mike Rapoli and Litmus Test. I'm not sure which of the partnerships silks
Right.
he was wearing in this race, because they rotate with that group.
And I don't think Litmus Test got away real well. I expect him to be a horse to show speed tomorrow. So let's go ahead and watch this, and then we'll talk about these horses.
Waiting for the Bob Baffert trainee Litmus Test. We're ready to go. And they're off in the 90th Arkansas Derby. Smooth beginning for all 8 runners in the race. Redland Rebels on the lead today with Bricklin, who's alongside in the early stages. Redland Rebels, short lead now. Bricklin will take a hold in a good stalking position. Blackout Time settles off the pace right behind Stalking, down on the rail 3rd. And Taptastic in his 2nd lifetime start is 4th going into the 1st turn. Litmus Test, Silent Tactic is next. Renegade, he's 2nd to last with Exosum as they round the clubhouse turn and approach the backstretch here. Redland Rebels cruising on the lead, opens up 2. Bricklin in 2nd, Blackout Time third down on the inside. He's on a snug hold. Length and a half to Taptastic. Then comes Silent Tactic. Litmus Test is deep on the course today, well off the pace. He's 4 lengths behind. Renegade at the back of the field. Exosum past him. So Renegade is shuffled to the back. He will have to pass them all as 7 lengths to make up in about a half mile. Down the back stretch, Redland Rebels went the opening quarter in 23-1, the half in 47-4. It's a moderate pace set by the Florida shipper. Redland Rebels, a length and a half in front. Bricklin in the second position going into the turn. Taptastic third. Blackout Time showing a little more rain as he goes into that turn. Silent Tactic being asked for a little more there. He goes into fifth, and he's making a move on the outside, and Renegade is following him. Renegade, he's 6 now. He's 5 off the lead with Irad coming to the top of the stretch. Bricklin's got a short lead now. Redland Rebels ahead behind. Silent Tactics moving up deep as they come off the turn. Taptastic right behind him, and Renegade is unlaunched on the 4 outside. Let's see what he's got for the final 3/16. Silent Tactic in front. Renegade way out in the center of the track, but he's coming with a burst. And here comes Renegade sweeping to the lead, and Renegade is drawing away in the Arkansas Derby. It's off to the run for the roses for Renegade in a dominating effort in the Arkansas Derby. How impressive was that? A huge kick from him today.
So apologies for my misidentifying what silks he was going to be wearing. He wore the colors of the Lowe's, who are co-owners with Mike Rapoli of this horse, but at least the track announcer had it right and was identified the horse correctly, so I'm sure you guys all followed all that well. Your guys' thoughts on Renegade's performance against this field, and how significant is it considering what you think of the strength of this field vis-a-vis what he's up against tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. I think the field tomorrow is much stronger, but naturally everybody thinks that. But perfect trip on the outside. He swung him out. It did look like they were running downhill, Jay. I like that. I mean, he was just flying down that strip. And the whole question mark is, what's come out of that race? I mean, Litmus Test, he hasn't done anything at Oaklawn in his 2 starts this year. You have to go back to like Los Al to find a good race for him. I think that Irad made his decision right on that closing move, and it might be the right decision. He ran very well in the Sam F. Davis at Tampa. His Ragozin is solid when you come to the higher, or I should say the lower numbers, which that's how you read those sheets. The lower number, the better. So he's been solid, and it's just a matter of getting off that rail and navigating this trip against 20 horses. It's very difficult on the rail. I mean, the best rider, in my opinion, in the world is on his back, so he should be able to do it. But I don't know if he's beaten, a quality horse, really. That's what I'm questioning, outside of, the Sam F. Davis run, which was, I think, better than this run, actually.
Duane, we were on our way to our little TV spot today. You mentioned a stat about Irad, who I know is your favorite, but not a good record in the Derby.
Right, that's what I said. 14 starts and never hit the board. So that's, you could still be the best and not accomplish anything in the Kentucky Derby, and it's a difficult race to win. I mean, several riders have gone years and years and years before they could get there or even win. So, yeah, that's a big stat, Bob. I said that.
I mean, visually, you have to like what this horse does, and if he gets his trip and the right pace in front of him, you got to think he's going to fire. But I just, those knocks with the Pletcher and the rail and maybe getting shuffled out of it early, being the morning line favorite in this spot, although I think he may float up a little bit. That's my opinion. I ranked him 4th in the race, and, he's not going to shock me at all, but he's one that I'm not going to put too many of my eggs in one basket here. I'm going to sort of lay him a little bit and just treat him as, one of my secondary horses in here. And Litmus Test, I can't see him, Jay. He won the Los Al Futurity as a 2-year-old. Looked like maybe he had something going, but only a couple starts this year. His Arkansas Derby didn't break well, but he's, I think he will be a speed factor, though. I think with Martin Garcia and blinkers and the 4-post, I think Bob Baffert is going to encourage him to go aggressively, and who knows into that first turn. Bob's been known to have his riders float him out or float him in, so I think litmus test may be a blocker tomorrow.
I think he will show some speed, but I don't know that he's going to be much of a factor after the first half mile or three-quarters. His barn mate, Potente, from Baffert's barn, is coming out of the Santa Anita Derby. He finished second in that race after beating So Happy in the San Felipe. Two others coming out of the Santa Anita Derby are in the Kentucky Derby tomorrow, Intrepido, who I thought was a little disappointing last time, and Robusta, who comes out of this race and ended up scratching in to the Kentucky Derby because of some of the withdrawals we've had during the course of the week. So, Bob, let's take a look at the Santa Anita Derby, and from which 4 horses are exiting, and see what you guys think of the runners in this one.
They're in the gate. And they're off in the Santa Anita Derby, and a little stumble for Cherokee Nation. Potente came out beautifully, and so did Robusta, who's right up alongside. So Happy in the 3-path, and Intrepido will now tuck in behind these 3. Start the Ride, who was off slowly, moves up. Vitruvian Man inside of him, and after a tough beginning, Cherokee Nation's at the back of the field. Juan Hernandez has Potente in front, rounding the clubhouse turn at the Great Race Place, with Robusta half-length back in second. Vitruvian Man is down at the rail. In between horses, Start the Ride, So Happy outside of them. Hector Barrios and Intrepido forced to go 4 wide, and Cherokee Nation's a handful at the back of the field. 4 lengths covers them 5 furlongs from home. Potente and Robusta are on even terms heading to the half-mile pole. Then it's So Happy in third, Start the Ride, Vitruvian Man. Intrepido 4 lengths off the leader, and Cherokee Nation. They're heading toward the far turn, and Robusta continues to put the pressure on Potente. Potente at the rail, Robusta right up alongside. So Happy 2 lengths back in third, and Intrepido tries to make his move. Behind them, Start the Ride under pressure. 3 lengths back, Vitruvian Man and Cherokee Nation. They're a quarter of a mile from home. Potente, Robusta, here's So Happy with a 3-wide move, and now it's So Happy and Potente who go on with it at the top of the stretch. Robusta is back to third, then Intrepido. They're in the final furlong. So Happy on the outside, and Mike Smith. Potente and Juan Hernandez are nose and nose, and So Happy puts him away late. It's So Happy pulling away to win the Santa Anita Derby by almost 3 lengths over Potente. A long way back, Vitruvian Man was third, and Intrepido finished fourth.
Duane, your thoughts on the foursome coming out of this race, headed by So Happy, who won it, and Potente, who was second, with the other 2 a long way back?
It was a good prep. I was surprised Potente was on the lead. I didn't like that because I bet him in the race, and I just couldn't understand. But I guess, Cherokee Nation was the buzz horse going into that race, and he just didn't break, didn't run a step. So I guess JJ just felt he wanted to take command and have the rest of the field come and catch him. I think that the prep prior to that was amazing, the San Felipe, because he dug in that last quarter of a mile, and I really felt that he had a learning experience closing. Now he had a learning experience on the rail and on the lead, and having somebody collar him. Now, this is Bob Baffert, and, him and Juan Hernandez, a solid team throughout Southern Cal. I mean, Bob and Jay will tell you that. They're just one of the most dominating forces, and Bob Baffert has dominated this race, for years, and always a Triple Crown threat. So I have to respect this horse. The winner of the race, So Happy, Money Mike Smith, one of the best ever to ride in the saddle. We know that. Getting a little older now, but he could still accomplish. I mean, Shoe won, he was up there in age when he won on Ferdinand and so forth. So, I think So Happy is a horse that has to be very, very close, whereas Potente could adjust and run under several conditions because of the learning experience now. And I feel that Bob Baffert, not that he's a superior trainer to Mark Glatt, but he's a superior trainer to Mark Glatt in this situation. This is Mark Glatt's first venture. What a great training story this year. He had a devastating loss We all want to see this guy win a race, and you know, a lot of people will be betting with their heart on this Glatt runner, So Happy. But I think Potente has more upside than So Happy going into this race. He worked a blistering workout the other day. It was like 57 and change. So, you know, Baffert's got him ready. And this is Bob's best horse in the race, so I have to respect the horse. You know, but that's a solid prep right there. You saw how far back the other horses were. Not that they were so much accomplished, but Cherokee Nation was bringing a lot to the table, and people felt that he, you know, was going to actually beat Potente in that race. So I give Baffert a lot of credit. The horse is working out fabulous. You got Juan Hernandez. He's been, you know, on the track for a few days now, one of the top riders in Southern Cal. So I kind of like him a little.
Bob, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I thought the San Felipe came up good for Potente, bad for So Happy. I thought the Santa Anita Derby came up good for So Happy, bad for Potente, the way the race unfolded. Who do you think, based on watching those two races, is the one that's the better chance tomorrow?
Agree with you, Jay, 100%. This is, for a small field, that was an interesting race. A lot of things happened in there. Cherokee Nation didn't break. He was a big, goofy horse who's got a lot of ability, but just can't seem to put it all together. And that, I thought, forced the hand of Potente, because one thing Bob Baffert likes is his horses to be in the race. They're not going to be renegades coming from the clouds. They are going to be part of the race. So when Cherokee Nation didn't break, I think plan B was, well, we've got to go with Potente. If that other horse would have broken, I think Potente maybe could have sat a little bit. So I agree with your analysis, Jay. He found himself on the lead, inside pressure. We're So Happy took back a little bit this time. The previous race that you mentioned, So Happy went after Brandt. That was a Bob Baffert horse, and Potente was the beneficiary. So, you know, let's play a little bit of inside baseball here. I know Jeff Mullins pretty well, and let me just say, without talking out of school, he's not real pleased to be running in this race with Intrepido. His quote, which was a quote from Baffert, is, "The horse takes you to the Derby, you don't take the horse to the Derby." So even though he had a wide trip, to me this horse just hasn't progressed off his 2-year-old form, and he's a toss to me. I've been looking for matchups all week long. I can't find one with Intrepido in there, but I think he runs poorly tomorrow. So Happy I was totally against in the Santa Anita Derby. I just didn't think he had the pedigree to go the 1 1/8. I didn't really like the way he caved in a little bit. Potente was very, very good to me that day. I was in a contest, and it was closing out a very large daily double that ended up winning me the contest. So I have a soft spot for Potente, and you know, with the work that you mentioned, I think whatever he can do, he'll do tomorrow. Whether that's good enough, I don't know. Because Jay, you might agree with this. I don't think our Southern Cal contingent was that strong this year.
I don't think it was that strong, but I do agree with you that Potente has the most upside of this foursome. Because I just think the race didn't come up good for him last time, and I think it might have toughened him up, too, to have a hard race like that.
And then Robusto, I have a bad number in there. That should be 23. This was the third horse from the also eligible list to get in with all the defections. This is a horse who nearly pulled off a 60-1 upset in the San Felipe. He led, you know, he turned for home. He put away everybody in front of him. And then, thank God, Potente came running, but I never thought I was getting there until the last jump. And then last time he pressed in the Santa Anita Derby, he went out the back door. Not a horse that I really think is overly talented, but, you know, Doug O'Neill's won 2 derbies, one of them with a big long shot, one of them with a favorite.
Having a tremendous year.
I like Doug. He's a semi-relative through marriage, but if you can figure out when his horses are going to fire, you're better than I am.
When Amarillo's on him, then.
I can't.
You got to have champs on him.
I think we're all in agreement then. Of the SoCal horses, I think Potente has the most upside tomorrow.
And I think the other thing that we're in agreement on is that based on strength of schedule, the horses coming out of Florida look on paper to be the strongest. And the Florida Derby was a great race. I mean, you had 3 horses who look like they're all top contenders for the Derby tomorrow coming to the wire together. And there was a lot going on in this race, too, in terms of trips. So I'm really looking forward to watching this again and getting your guys' thoughts on how it unfolded and what it means going forward as well. So let's take a look at the Florida Derby with Commandment, the Puma, and Chief Wallaby.
And now the 75th Florida Derby. And they're off. Good start for Wayne's Law on his outside, timeless victory, and in between them, nearly got away cleanly. Chief Wallaby is out the rail. He's on a hold from Junior Alvarado and races in fourth. The two at the back are the Puma and Commandment.
Uh-oh. Wi-Fi.
Around the first turn they go. They're chasing
up.
long shot Wayne's Law, who's on top by a length and a half. Second is Nearly. He's in a comfortable position in a flanking role with Chief Wallaby third at the inside. Back to fourth in timeless victory. Patient at the back, Commandment and the Puma. The field separated by 4 lengths as they pass the opening quarter. That opening quarter was quite reasonable, just 24 seconds flat. Wayne's Law the leader. John Velasquez has Nearly right where he wants him, on the hip of the leader while in the clear second. Junior Alvarado is tucked in third with Chief Wallaby from timeless victory, who's now fourth. Castellano guides the Puma to the clear. He's up on the outside second last. And at the back of the field is a patient Flavian Pratt on Commandment, last of the 6 with less than 5 furlongs to race. The opening half mile was 48-4. As they make their way to the final half mile of the 75th Florida Derby, it's Nearly turning up the pressure on Wayne's Law. Timeless victory is third. Locked in the box is Chief Wallaby. On the far outside, it's the Puma. He's poised to pounce. A gap of 2 more to Commandment, who's at the back of the field as the pace quickens and they swing around the far turn. Castellano moving on the Puma. He gets within a half a length of Nearly, who tries to quicken away. Dropping back to third is Wayne's Law. Swung to the center. Commandment working to the clear, Chief Wallaby. Less than a quarter of a mile to go, and the Puma has made the lead. The Puma sticks a neck in front of Nearly as they straighten away in the stretch drive. Chief Wallaby trying to angle off their flank down the center. Commandment. The 4 big shots with an eighth of a mile more to decide it. The Puma has the lead. Running at him from the outside is Commandment. In between horses, Chief Wallaby. A thrilling finish to the Florida Derby. Here comes Commandment. The Puma tries to turn him back. It's a win photo. It's an inch and a half either way. It's the Puma on the inside. It's Commandment on the outside.
So really a terrific race between 3 horses that are all top contenders. Before, Wayne, I get your thoughts on this. One aspect of this race and some other racing at Gulfstream this winter, I'm really good friends with Mike Welsh, who does all the work in South Florida for the Daily Racing Forum and does those great clocker reports at events like the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup. And he said that on this day, and also for a significant part of the Gulfstream winter meeting, the outside was the better place to be. And the race shape, the way this race unfolded, you could sort of see them kind of coming in waves, and Commandment made the last run and got up at the end. But all 3 ran terrifically. Duane, what are your thoughts on these 3?
Yeah, three major contenders in this year's Kentucky Derby, and definitely Commandment, that's where Pratt comes into play. He made the right move. Javi moved a little early with the Puma. You saw Chief Wallaby was in all sorts of trouble, Junior Alvarado, and that's why Pratt's the master. He made the last move. He came on the outside, which you could tell. It was definitely an outside favoring track. I think that Chief Wallaby learned the most because he was tentative in between and he didn't want to go. But now I think with the addition of the blinkers and Bill Mott turning the screws, he'll definitely be a little more aggressive. And I've seen that in his workouts. The Puma is just an amazing animal, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, that was a great run at Tampa Bay, and this race looked wrapped up, I'll tell you. When he made that move and collared the leader and just took command, I thought he was just going to draw away, but that's the inexperience, not running at as a 2-year-old. Gustavo Delgado, great trainer, but, just maybe a little tentative getting the horse ready, but, the Ragozin numbers for these 3 are, other than Further Ado's last race, right there and top notch. And this is what is going to be the telling tale. And the Puma actually got a better number than Commandment in the race. So that just tells you how the Puma was running. I think if Javi just waits a little instant, a small little glitch, he definitely wins the race. So, I think the Puma and Chief Wallaby are major, major contenders. And I thrive off of what Jay said. I just believe Commandment got the best trip, was on the best part of the track, and had the best rider in the race, and now Flavian goes somewhere else. So that also should tell you something. I mean, you know, Derby time, these guys have contracts, and I know Pratt has a contract with Chad Brown, but come Kentucky Derby, these guys loosen up and they let you ride the horse of your choice. They're not going to hold it against you. So Pratt choosing to go in a different direction also sways me to believe that, you know, it was just a trip of circumstance, and, you know, he's looking elsewhere for his mount. Whereas the Puma and Chief Wallaby, I think, have a tremendous upside coming into this Kentucky Derby.
Bob, I remember 5 weeks ago, right after the Florida Derby was run, that you were really, really high on Chief Wallaby's performance.
I was, and you know what I was really high on him was from his second race, when he stretched out from a 7-furlong maiden and then went in the Fountain of Youth in his second career start. I mean, to me, that's the biggest jump in racing. First of all, you go from maidens to winners. Now you're going to go from a sprint to 2 turns in 1 race and do it in a grade 2 against a horse like Commandment. I thought it was a huge effort, so I was a huge fan from that point on. To me, he lost nothing in defeat in the Florida Derby. As Duane said, he was just a little tentative. He wouldn't go through that opening when it was there. He wouldn't stick his head through. So, Jay, I wanted to ask you, the addition of blinkers, obviously a Hall of Fame trainer, a jockey who was going to make the suggestion to him as well. But I guess historically, it's not been a great move to put on blinkers in your first time running in, you know, first start being in the Kentucky Derby with blinkers.
Right. It hasn't been, but I think if you watch the way this horse performed, and as Duane was pointing out, sort of how tentative he was, I think it's the right move, and I think it's borne out by the subsequent workouts that we've seen from this horse at Churchill Downs. I mean, he does look like he's really kind of jumped forward. He's breezed with blinkers on, and I just think it looks like it was a move that had to be made. You know, win, lose, or draw, it was the right move. And to me, if he does get beat tomorrow, it's not going to be because, wow, they shouldn't have put the blinkers on him. I mean, everything that this horse, in my mind, has done since they've added him shows that he's going to run the best race possible with them on.
Yeah, definitely. And Commandment, is he just a Gulfstream Park specialist? I mean, he's got a nice win breaking his maiden at Churchill Downs, but, you know, he won 3 in a row at Gulfstream, and Churchill's a significantly different surface, in my opinion. So he'll also have to get acclimated to his surroundings. Not that he's not working out great, but, you know, that's a factor that I put into play. And, you know, he did run as a 2-year-old, and the horses that we're talking about have not. They've only run his 3-year-olds, the Puma and Chief Wallaby. So take that into consideration, how deep this field and how the contenders are this year.
And to me, Commandment, I don't know if he's the most likely winner of the race, but if you're a tri or a superfecta player, to me, Jay, he's the most likely horse to be in the top 4. He just runs his race every time. Sort of a mid-pack style. I think he'll be in front of Renegade early. We see he has a will to win. He's won by a nose and a neck. I love it when horses do that. And, you know, last time you really couldn't tell. He just got the best of the head bob there. It didn't look like he won. The Puma, those connections know how to do it. I mean, this is...
Right, they won with Mage.
They won with Mage, kind of the same pattern, right? Training in Florida before they came up for no official works over the Churchill track, I don't believe. But really a really nice horse with improving numbers. Jay, my question to you, and Duane kind of alluded to it, sort of musical jockeys. And we see that at this time of the year. But, you know, Pratt's off Commandment. He just won with him. He goes to Chad Brown. Irad stays aboard Renegade for connections that have been very good to him. Is this a case of guys being loyal to their best clientele, or do they really like these horses that they're getting on?
I think it's probably a little of both. You know, obviously, as Duane was saying, I mean, it's kind of every man for himself with jockeys when it comes to the Kentucky Derby. It's a race you obviously want to win, and trainers aren't going to really hold your feet to the fire. But if it's a coin toss and you ride a lot for Todd Pletcher and not so much for Brad Cox, you might lean towards your Todd Pletcher, like in the case of Irad Ortiz, or with Pratt, who obviously, you know, Chad Brown has become his main meal ticket. you know, if it's a coin flip, you're probably going to lean that way. So I think, to your question, I think it's a little bit of both in these cases.
I just think all three of these horses have a big chance, and as we talked about earlier, I thought the Florida Derby was the strongest race. Sorry about the quality there. It looked like 1970s we were watching before high def. I don't know what happened.
Let me ask you guys a question, though. Is Commandment the favorite if Pratt is on him? So, you know, I mean, he's going to a 15-1. We know the loyalty, and Chad Brown's going to use him regardless. I've seen Chad Brown get crazy on Irad, even after wins, and show him displeasure, whereas I've never seen that with Pratt. So, you know, I would think Commandment, if Pratt is on the horse, would probably be the favorite.
Let's take a look. Yeah, no, go ahead. We'll take a look now at the Bluegrass Stakes, and that's the race that Further Ado won, just sort of running off the screen. There was one other horse in the race, Great White, who was also in the field, but was obviously a long ways back, as was pretty much anybody else in the race, with Further Ado winning it. So let's take a look at the Bluegrass Stakes and watch Further Ado strut his stuff.
And they're off in the Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. There's Talkin' with Great White from the inside, and Great White comes forward for the lead. Creole Chrome is there to the far outside of the opening strides, then Talkin' back toward the rail as they head into the first turn. Reagan Zonder is next. Further Ado is wide. 3 lanes off the rail as they head round the first turn in the 5th position. Otinho is now next to last as they travel off the turn and onto the backstretch. Moonstrosity is the early trailer. Great White is the leader. Great White to the inside leads it by just a neck. Creole Chrome tries to draw alongside from second. Further Ado was wide around the first turn, moves up into third, a length and a half off the front pair, 23.6 seconds, the time for the opening quarter. Reagan's Honor, fourth between horses. Talkin' moves up one spot to the inside of that one. Then a break of over 5 more lengths to Otinho next to last, and nearly 4 more back of that one. Moonstrosity is the trailer as they reach the midpoint of the backstretch. Creole Chrome to the outside, challenging Great White for the lead. Further Ado still there to the outside, still third by just a neck, and Talkin' fourth back toward the inside. 47.71 seconds the time for the first half mile. Reagan's Honor 5 lengths off the lead in 5th, on to the far turn. Back up front, Creole Chrome has the lead by just a head around the turn. Further Ado is looking for some more running room, swings back up toward the outside and comes after Great White and Creole Chrome. Just over a quarter mile to come. Top of the stretch of the Toyota Bluegrass. Further Ado moving forward to the far outside to take the lead off the far turn. Creole Chrome is now second. Great White drops back third. Talkin' is in fourth. Into the final furlong. It's Further Ado by 5. Further Ado by 6, by 8. We've seen this before. Here he comes to the 16th pole. A magnificent run to win the Grade 1 Toyota Bluegrass. Further Ado, Irad Ortiz Jr. Spendthrift wins the Bluegrass. Otinho did rally up to be second, followed by Talkin' in third, and Creole Chrome fourth, 1 minute 49.59 seconds.
So a big win there, obviously, by Further Ado. He had a similar kind of performance when he beat Maidens at the same track at Keeneland in the fall. And I think, Duane, this is kind of there's 2 big questions with this horse. Is he going to be as good at Churchill as he is at Keeneland, or does Keeneland just sort of flatter him and he comes back down to earth? And we've been talking a lot about the musical jockeys. Here's another one, right? John Velasquez, obviously a sensational Hall of Fame rider, but he's never been on the horse before. Irad rides this horse to this blowout victory and says, nah, I'd rather ride Renegade.
Yeah, definitely. You know, another choice, like you said. And, you know, this horse is coming off a loss against the Puma and did this. But once again, is it a horse for the course? Is this just Keeneland? Is there the bounce factor? The Ragozin is the lowest coming into this race. So he has the best Ragozin number, but it could be a bounce. I mean, the horse won by 11. Irad's choosing to go elsewhere. Brad Cox is loaded. I mean, I love the trainer, but... you know, it is musical chairs. And who did he beat? He didn't beat much in this race.
He beat you and me and Bob, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could run faster than most of the competition here. And, what was shocking out of that race was Great White was so disappointing after a nice run at Turfway Park. And he beat me out of a ton that night at Turfway Park, I'll be honest with you. So I thought he would have ran a lot better, and the public did too, if you look at his odds. But, this horse dominates at times, but I think he's going to be definitely a circumstance of outside speed, pushing him in and maybe, intimidating him a little. John Velasquez is a legend, probably. I heard a stat the other day. This man won $500 million in purses. And, Joe Talamo, who's on FanDuel TV, he was saying, and you get about 7 or 8% out of that. So John is a legend. I mean, it's unbelievable. From Cordero, Jorge, John Velasquez, they were all family, camaraderie. And, you're not losing much on the rider, but it is his first time on the horse. And I think he could definitely finish, but I'm looking elsewhere off of this race.
Bob, I want to ask you regarding further ado. Obviously got a giant fig last time on buyers, on Ragazins. Is this a case where if this horse is 5-2, you're like, maybe it's an underlay, but if he's 6-1 and he's got the top fig, I look at it a little bit differently?
Yeah, exactly, and I've gone back and forth on this horse in my mind so many times, is he just a Keeneland specialist? Well, you look at what he did as a 2-year-old at Churchill. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club, in pretty good style as the odds-on choice. His works over Churchill's doesn't make it appear that he's just a Keeneland horse. I know Brad Cox was about coming out of his skin the way he worked at 5/8, one back. I mean, he was just basically saying put him in the winner's circle. A friend of ours who, a long time, Jay hosted Thoroughbred Los Angeles. John Lindo and I have taken it over, but Jay still occasionally comes on. And a longtime friend of ours, Toby Cowlett, is on our show every week from South Florida. And John asked him, or Mike Willman maybe asked him, you have any early thoughts? And he said, if further ado doesn't win, they should just trigger an investigation. and now Toby doesn't usually speak like that. So he thinks it's a one-horse race. I've kind of gone back and forth, and I've got him now as my co-top horse with Chief Wallaby. I wanted to just key everything around Chief Wallaby, but I just got a little bit scared that, hey, maybe Further Adu's just the best horse in the race. He's just the fastest horse, maybe.
And based on like what I was alluding to is part of the reason that you want to use him, because it looks like he's going to be a bigger price than you would usually see on a horse that gets that kind of a fig.
And I love the 18 post for this
Right.
horse. I mean, actually, he'll move in a couple lanes, but I like him being outside. He's tactical enough, as we saw. He ran 3 wide around the first turn last time. I would love to see the same kind of trip. I think Robusta, the horse that drew in, is probably going to probably gun out of there from the outside post. I think the Baffert with litmus test, this horse could fall into a really great spot if he comes out and breaks well. So major contender for me, not so much for Great White.
Are you saying you're once bitten, twice shy about Great White? Nobody got that joke. That's really
I did.
so disappointing. Thank you.
80s song.
Right.
Shows my age.
All right, let's move on to the
final one, Jay.
The final video that we've got, which is the Louisiana Derby. Emerging Market wins it for Chad Brown. Very similar to the horse that he won the Oaks with today. She had 2 starts, won the Kentucky Oaks. Emerging Market, only making the 2nd start of his career, wins the mile and 3/16 Louisiana Derby, and he'll come back tomorrow in the Kentucky Derby. Let's take a look at him and Pavlovian in the Louisiana Derby.
Pavlovian, a Southern Cal horse who had shipped around a little bit, ran in the Sunland race and then the Louisiana Derby. And John Lindo suggested a prop bet the other day, and I passed it on Duane, but he didn't do anything with it. What are the odds that the
I
same
can't
trainer...
influence Caesars yet, Bob.
The
If
same-
it was Chris Andrews, yeah. But
the same trainer would win the Oaks and Derby. I thought that was really interesting. Well, we know now Chad Brown's the only one who has a chance. Let's watch the Louisiana Derby, which was run 5 weeks ago. It's the prep that's the farthest out from the Kentucky Derby and also the longest one, Jay. a mile and 3/16.
Off in the TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby. And toward the inside, Pavlovian away well. Chip Poncho is right up there along with Autobahn, Merging Market, and Easterly. And the white cap is another that's prominent as they make their way toward the first turn. Just being led by Pavlovian. Right there is Autobahn, matching strides with Pavlovian as they enter the first turn. And Chip Poncho is just off them in the 3-path as they round the first turn. Easterly, the Windstar White, is fourth toward the inside as Pavlovian has taken the lead at the 6.5. And there comes Emerging Market, who settled in fifth, while two clear from Universe in the black with the green hoops. There comes Blacksmith. The trailers are First Time Blinker, Golden Tempo, and Spirit of Royal has dropped back to last. The quarter, 22.65 seconds. So Eldwin Maldonado running the offense here with Pavlovian. Pavlovian leads by 2 to Autobahn running second. 3/4 length to Chip Poncho, who's racing wide there for Luis Saez. In the meantime, gaining at the inside is Easterly with his bid. They have a half mile to go in the Louisiana Derby. Flavian Pratt and Emerging Market now moving up on the outside, 5 lengths off these leaders. As Emerging Market starts a bid, 3 furlongs to go. The half was 46.23 seconds. Chip Poncho now coming with a bid. Further back is Golden Tempo, who's drawn to within 5 lengths off these leaders. And Golden Tempo is picking up. Then Universe with Blacksmith and Spirit of Royal. 3/4, 1 minute 10.85 seconds. They turn for home and they come past the quarter pole. And here's Emerging Market. Emerging Market, and toward the inside, Pavlovian tries to rally on. And these two come together with 1 furlong to go. Pavlovian is dug in. Emerging Market's battling. Golden Tempo toward the inside. Chip Poncho is well back. It's Pavlovian and Emerging Market in a Louisiana Derby thriller. 2, Emerging Market, who just rises to the moment. Emerging Market over Pavlovian. Golden Tempo and Universe finished 4th in the TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby.
I'm not sure who was more tired, the horses or the track announcer there at the end of the race there. Duane, there's a lot of the old Derby rules that we've seen over the years have sort of gone by the wayside, right? Apollo, if you haven't run at 2, you can't win the Derby. And then we see Mage and Justify and all the horses that have not run at 2 that have now won the Derby. And horses are much more lightly raced than they have been. But here we have a horse who's run 2 times, Emerging Market. What are your thoughts on, where does he go forward here, or is this just a bridge too far?
It's tough to get a read. I mean, it was a good learning experience because Pavlovian was pushing him out, and, the Candyman gave a good ride there, definitely got the most out of his horse. Maybe Pratt moved a tad too early, and he was wide throughout, but it was still a great learning experience, and he still got to the wire first. I just don't know if you're going now to the classic distance of 1.25 miles, if this horse could actually get the distance. I think he'll have to wait before he moves, against this field, and also navigate a good trip. But if anybody could do it, Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt, deadliest of combinations. We've seen that over the years now. Dominate, turf racing mainly, but also the dirt racing. And Chad Brown would never put a horse in if he doesn't feel that the horse has an ultimate chance, working very well at Churchill Downs. This horse is very tough to get a read on just because you only have 2 races. A little more experience, I would definitely be buying all into this horse, but, it's just the experience level. I love Chad Brown. He's one of my favorite conditioners. I bet him, religiously. But I just don't know if he could get 1.25 miles, especially against all of these horses, a field of 20 navigating. I don't know if he has enough experience. Pavlovian, he's got a ton of experience. You look at him, it's just, does he have enough class? And can the speed carry? There's going to be so much speed, especially, like I said, on the outside. You have a lot of these horses that are going to be going to the front, and it's just, can he hold the lead and continue to go on like he did in this last race? But it's going to be interesting to see. I think Emerging Market could definitely peak out, but is it enough? I don't know.
Bob, this is a horse I really have a lot of trouble with because, just off the performance, I thought it was fine, but Pavlovian's was coming into this race out of the Sunland Derby, which is not a strong race. This is so atypical, though, of Chad Brown. He's not a guy who's going to run in the Derby just to run in the Derby. So for him...
They'd wait for the Preakness, right?
Right. So for him to go here with this horse, to me, is really intriguing. It's a horse that I think if anybody else trained this horse, I would toss. But with Chad Brown, who's not normally going to just throw a horse to the wolves like this, it piques my interest. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It's a hard race for me to analyze the Louisiana Derby. The emerging market to me is kind of the X factor in here. Reading the article that was in the Forum the other day, Chad Brown is really, really high on this horse. And like you said, his pattern, and he's won a couple Preaknesses by skipping the Derby. And you would think maybe that would have been the inclination here. His owner also is getting aggressive in this spot. So to me, he's on the fringe. I'm not going to say he can't win, or you're not going to say he will win, but you know, if you're spreading pretty deep in your rolling bets, he's one that I would have in there. You know, he'd be sort of at the tail end of my contenders, but he's in there. And Pavlovian's an interesting horse. As Duane said, he's got the most experience. 10 starts. His first race as a 2-year-old was nearly a year ago when he debuted at Santa Anita in a 4.5 furlong race against Calbreds. Well, he's come a long way, and Doug O'Neill has credited Maldonado for a lot of his success coming out of the gate, the stretch out in distance. You know, he tries hard. He's a really hard-knocking horse. I don't think he can win, but Paul Redham has won 2 Derbies along with Doug O'Neill in the past, so there would certainly be a, you know, historic victory for this horse. I don't think he'll do it. I think he'll be a pace casualty, but he is a hard-trying horse.
The last race that we're going to discuss, we don't have video of this, but that we're going to discuss is the race from Japan that Danon Bourbon comes out of. And Duane, I want to start with you. This is a horse who's 3 for 3. You know, 2 years ago, you were incredibly bullish on Forever Young and had a brutal beat in that race. But I mean, I think you're really dialed in on what is considered good Japanese form and what isn't. So I wanted to start with you and see what you think of this horse.
Well, he's definitely in solid shape. It's just, who is he beating over there? I don't think he's as accomplished as Forever Young was coming into the race. I think Forever Young was running against a higher competition level, and that panned out. I mean, Forever Young is a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, finished just second, won the Saudi Cup. Just an unbelievable racehorse, and, you know, had a brutal beat, like you said. Now, you know, Danon Bourbon, he's run twice. You know, he's got definitely no distance limitations, but the times are a little suspect in my opinion. You know, he always runs on a wet track. I think he would definitely be elevated on a wet track, but I don't think it's going to be wet tomorrow for once at Churchill Downs. We're used to quagmires and rain for the last 10 years. There's been about 5 that it's been deluge, but we're supposed to get good weather tomorrow. I mean, the rider is definitely a good rider in Japan, but not a top rider. You know, very solid. The connections, you know, I've been watching the horse gallop a little, but we really don't have a published workout on the horse as well. So I'm going to have to take a pass. You know, I did see they're available if you look deep online, these 2 prep races, and it just seemed like the other horses were climbing running against him. So I'm not so sure if he's going to be able to, you know, compete at this higher level, but anything's possible. I mean, Japan is definitely a major player now in horse racing. We're seeing that time and time again. You know, they're definitely here to stay and definitely love to win, and especially the Kentucky Derby. So, you know, I think you're seeing, though, the odds at 20-1 are a little strong, and they're telling you that the horse isn't really just there yet.
Do you give this horse any shot?
Jay, I just like the name of the stakes race to put on the prep race, the Fukuru Stakes. So I wanted to ask you, Jay, about these foreigners that are coming in. Danon Bourbon, Wonder Dean, you've got the horses that, you know, the 6-speed out of Dubai. Any feel for these? Because to me, we have so many talented horses that we know that I'm just going to say, I'm going to take a pass, and if they beat me, they beat me.
Yeah, I think 6-speed will be sort of a pace casualty. You know, I agree with Duane that I think Danon Bourbon's races don't really measure up in terms of where, like, Forever Young was coming into this race in terms of accomplishments. And the other Japanese horse looks to me like he's a significant cut below Danon Bourbon. So these horses intrigue me when I think it's maybe a down year, but I think at the top of this field, we've got 4 or 5 really, really good horses this year, and it makes it a really good gambling race.
Well, now let's get into the gambling
let's talk
part
about
of
the
it.
gambling,
Yeah,
yes.
That's why we're all here, right? We want to try to make some money tomorrow, and what better than a Derby Day card, which to me is equivalent to a Breeders' Cup card. Tomorrow is the undercard races are just fantastic. You look at the purse money; they're putting $1 million up like they're $10,000 purses. You know, they're just it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow. I guess the only thing that's not fun about tomorrow is how much time is in between races. I know that's always been a pet peeve of yours.
Yeah, it's racing's longest day, and I don't understand why they need so much time between races, but boy, they drag it out, and it's hard if you're there.
It's the crowd.
It's
That's
hard
what it
to
is.
stay awake.
Even with the dollar super minimum.
You know, an hour between the last race before the Derby and the Derby, at least an hour. It's like, man.
And then 2 races after the Derby. For
and
you
2
pick
races
5
after to let traffic
For the
clear.
real sickos.
I think that's what the Oaks card was so long today. I mean, it's unheard of. I mean, business owners at Churchill Downs were entertaining not opening their restaurants because the crowd wasn't going to get out till 9 o'clock. And what do you serve till midnight the day before the Derby?
Right, exactly.
Well,
All right,
Duane,
Duane, you're on the clock.
We've got your Derby bets, so let's go.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going with the Puma. I'm sticking with Javi and Delgado. You know, a very successful combination. Like we said, Mage, you know, just I like the way the horse ran in that. I think she ran the best in the Florida Derby, or he ran the best, I should say, in the Florida Derby. And I take a lot out of that race. I mean, Chief Wallaby was right there. Chief Wallaby is definitely a solid racehorse. I think the move with the blinkers is going to enhance his chances. And I was tossing these 2 around, and, you know, I just couldn't decide, but then I finally said, you know what, the Puma makes that move again. It's going to be a better move. He's going to be more in shape. You know, the risk of having the blinkers on the first time, even though it's Bill Mott, I'm going to sway to the Puma. Like I said, they both have superior Ragozin numbers coming out of that Florida Derby race, other than Further Ado. So, you know, I'm definitely putting my hat there, and I definitely respect Bob Baffert. I think this horse has learned so much in those last 2 preps. Like I said, having to close and make up significant ground in the Felipe there, and then on the lead, you know, being forced into a situation that the horse didn't like. The workout this week just shows tremendous fitness for Potente, and I definitely think he will get into the number. But I'm definitely hanging my hat on these 2 horses. As you can see, my trifectas, I'm keying the Puma as well as Chief Wallaby in the first and, you know, second position, hopefully. Boxing the trifecta with Potente. I'm using the contenders, like Bob said. You know, we're going to use Renegade. Definitely any horse IRAD's on, I'm definitely looking at. Saez and Commandment, the horse finished, you know, outfinished both of my top selections, so I respect that. I just think it was a circumstance of a perfect trip. Throwing in definitely Potente, like I said, and respect Further Ado. I think this American contingency that I have clustered right here are the best horses in this race and your best options. And I think just the Puma is going to get a perfect trip. He's perfectly situated in the middle. And, you know, I think Chief Wallaby is going to have to come and reel him in late, similar to what Sovereignty and Baeza did and Journalism in the last race. But I think the Puma will get the jump.
Bob? Totally unrelated. My wife's birthday is on December 14th. Her extent of handicapping, whenever there's a 14-horse field, is to box the 12 and the 14. So when the post positions came up, I said, Kim, you got a shot at hitting the exacta this year with your 12-14 box. So yeah, that will be very, she'll be very happy if you're right about that, Duane. Okay, let's go to your pick 5 ticket, which you put together starting in the 8th race.
Excuse me. Yes, in the 8th race, I'm going with the 2 favorites, basically, in the Pate Mile. The 1, Jose Ortiz, an Englishman, and the 6, crude velocity. Florent Giroux, Bob Baffert, definitely a major factor and a major player in this race. There's several pick fives, so make sure you get the right structure. This is 8 through 12. Like I said, there's 2 races after the Kentucky Derby, and there's also a pick 5 there. So this one starts in race 8. Then we move on to race 9. I'll be using Flavian Pratt in the 4. The 7, I definitely think also Alpeland has an excellent chance with Javier Castellano. The 8 horse, Greenwich Village, another Juan Hernandez. This horse is going to be a good price. And if he wins this race, he'll definitely light up this pick 5 without a doubt. And the 12, Remember Mamba, Jose Ortiz. I'm sure he's named after Kobe Bryant. Moving into the next race, the Churchill Downs handicap, the 1, Disco Time, very tough horse. John Velasquez in the saddle, going deep in this race. Cornucopian, another Bob Baffert horse that everybody thought a lot of. I think he's coming into the race very solid. He's going to be tough in this one. Definitely has a fighter's chance in this deep field in this Churchill Downs handicap. Knightsbridge, he's going to be the favorite. I mean, you just look at his winning streak and the way he's putting it together. I mean, every race explodes. The raggers and numbers are huge on him. Definitely one of the top horses in this race. Imagination, Flavian Pratt again. Definitely anytime he has a chance, you have to throw him in. And the 10 is my guy, David Jacobson, banishing 1 in Saudi Arabia, and unfortunately we couldn't bet on that. Dubai, I think he won in. And Banishing is a very solid horse. You could get a read on this horse, and if David turns the screws, this horse will run for days. And he was kicking clear in that last race and was way overmatched. I wish we had some odds on him, because I would have definitely been tapping out on him. Moving on to the Old Forester, only going 3 deep here with the 4, 6, and 9. Program training, Tyler Gaffalione, one of the top riders, getting back into shape. He had an injury, based out of Florida. It's going to be interesting to see where he moves his tack this summer. The 6, Rhetorical, Irad Ortiz, I think he's going to win this race, actually, but I had to respect the other 2. And test score with Manuel Franco, who is definitely a top East Coast rider, multiple aqueduct titles, and, knows how to navigate a horse. Then I will close it out with the Puma and Chief Wallaby. $120 ticket if you like to, structure. That's a 50-cent structure, and this is for the higher gamblers, without a doubt. But if you want to take that chance, you could cut the ticket in half by just singling the Puma if you like my Kentucky Derby selection.
All right, Bob, what do you like?
I'm going to give out my Derby, and generally, like I said, I like to key 1 horse by maybe 3 and then hit the all button. And that horse for me was going to be Chief Wallaby, but the more I keep looking and thinking about Further Ado, I really fear that horse. So I made them my co-top choices. I'm going to put together 2 trifecta tickets here, and putting them on top, and then if you want to spend the money, also putting them in the second spot with 6 other horses in here. I don't probably need to list off every horse. If you want to take a picture, I'll put these out in the race book tomorrow.
They will be available.
But I'm going to put 2 over 6 over the same 6, and then if you want to come back and spend the money, those 6 horses over the 12 and the 18, Chief Wallaby, Further Ado, and then the same 6. So those are a pair of $60 tickets, structured a little differently than what I normally do. You see my top 4 in there. That's pretty chalky. There is room for prices, in the second and third spots in my trifecta. But I did want to give out one other horse today, or tomorrow rather.
You've been watching the tapes, haven't you?
I've been watching the tapes, and do yourself a favor, build some bankroll tomorrow in the 5th race. Yellow Card had about as bad a trip as you could have in the sprint race at Keeneland. This is a turf sprint, by the way. This is a horse trained by Michael McCarthy. And Flavian Pratt, for as great as I think he is, he got into a tough spot last time. He was down inside. He took up very badly. He re-rallied. He came outside. And I thought it was just a monstrous race. There is one horse I fear on a speed angle in there, and that's Joe Shiesty, the 10 horse. And I think he is the speed to possibly clear, so I have to respect that. I really like the 7 yellow card, but for an exacta box, I really think the 10 offers the best chance to maybe wire out this field. He's 6-1, so you get a lot of value there with an exacta 7-10 box, and that's my actually best play of the day. If you see me after the 5th race tomorrow, if I'm bouncing off the walls, you know I'm in a very good mood and I struck gold, and if I'm moping in my seat and pouting, you know it's going to be a long haul and a long climb for me between races 6 and 13 is going to be
about
is going to
6
be
hours,
you know,
too.
I might have to think about it for a long time, but that's kind of my big play tomorrow. I'm not going to pick 5 together. Maybe I'll put it on my sheet in the race book tomorrow. So Jay, normally you have some picks, but I know you've had some personal family stuff going on this week where you haven't really been able to bear down, but obviously a great job as our MC as always.
Thank you. Yeah, I do like, though, the top 2 that you do just the other way around. I like Further Ado best. You know, if he was 5-2, not interested. I think 6-1 on a horse with that fig is you gotta respect it. You know, I do fear that he's going to react to that last race. It was a big race, but again, you got to sort of let price guide what you do, and I just think his value is going to be there. I thought Chief Wallaby's work. I liked his races, and just from what I've seen of the way he's trained with the blinkers on his last 2 breezes, I just think he's really going to run the race of his life tomorrow. So I'm the 1812 Overture tomorrow. The other 2 horses that I give big shots to are the Puma and Potente are the other ones that I'm going to fool around with in the gimmicks. Before we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't cover that you guys have a question about? And when you ask your question, let me repeat it so that if somebody doesn't hear it. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Well, which one? Dane and Bourbon? No, we said we don't have the video of that, unfortunately, so that's why we just discussed him. But yeah, was there some? Were you just curious? Yeah. So this gentleman said that he thinks this horse is supposed to be better than Forever Young. I defer to my Japanese expert, Mr. Colucci, to answer that inquiry.
Well, that's a bold statement, but, you know, watching his replays, which I did watch the 2, I don't think he's nearly as talented at this point of his career. Now, anything could happen. Definitely, like I said, I respect the Japanese runners totally, but this is not Forever Young, not at this point. I mean, Forever Young is a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, you know, Dubai World Cup, etc., Saudi Cup, just a monstrous horse. And, you know, he was such a victim in that last Kentucky Derby when he ran against Sierra. He got a little crushed. You know, he got, I think the rider was a little tentative, too, because of the aggressive style. But, you know, anything's possible. I mean, the horse definitely has a chance. He's only a 20-1 morning line, and I've seen him float up. I think he's 30 in the advanced wagers. I just don't like the times and the competition level I looked into. It's not as strong as what Forever Young was running against. But if you look at him on paper, he's definitely a contender, but it's just, can he elevate his level to these more accomplished racehorses and also acclimate himself to his surroundings, you know, in that short period of time?
Jay, real quick for you, you've covered the sport obviously for decades. Did you ever think that
Is that a nice way of saying I'm old?
He's an old guy. Did you ever think the Japanese horses would reach this level on the international level that they are, of the success they're having?
I mean, 30 years ago, no. But within the last few years, yes. Because, I mean, you just see them go to the Breeders' Cup or to Europe or to Hong Kong.
The Mideast.
And they fire wherever they go. You know, Saudi, UAE, they're a force. And the reason I believe they've become that is they sort of followed the model that the U.S. did post-World War II. The U.S. breeding industry really took off post-World War II by bringing in overseas stallions like Nasrullah and horses like that. And that we ended up, you know, 2 decades later with maybe the greatest racing we've ever had in this country in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And starting with horses like Northern Taste and Sunday Silence, and you could go down now a long laundry list of horses and mares especially that they've purchased. They have the best bloodstock in the world, in my opinion, right now. And that's why I think you're seeing these results.
Yeah, definitely. Jay is correct. And, you know, Jay has more knowledge than I do by far and goes back further. But, you know, definitely they have immense stock right now.
We do have a microphone here for those that
We're not taking any more questions.
Actually, one question for Duane and one question for Jay. Sorry, Bob, you're out of luck on this one. Duane, on your Exacta box, if you had to either add Renegade or Further Ado, and I know you like both horses, but you could only pick one, which one would you give the nod to?
Alan, that's a great question because it's real tight, but I would probably say Renegade. You know, I think that, you know, he's going to navigate a good trip. I think there's going to be a lot of speed out there, and I don't know what Further Ado is going to do. You know, if he could sit maybe third, fourth, and then go around 6-speed and those horses, you know, it's so difficult when you're narrowing those two horses down. And, you know, like Jay said, maybe it is, you know, a little respect to where Irad's going to Pletcher over the horse, but he and Brad Cox were just such a phenomenal combination, and now, you know, you're getting a legend, but it's difficult with a new rider. He's working out tremendously, but I would slightly go with Renegade.
Appreciate it. And then, Jay, I noticed on the tapes that Chief Wallaby was lathered up pretty hard, and you've covered a lot of derbies. How much input do you put into a horse before the race getting anxious or nervous, and how much does it take out of it?
It's really situational, Al, because it really depends on how they've behaved before. So if you see a horse that gets lathered up before a race previously and he runs well, it wouldn't bother me. If it's not something he's ever done before and then he comes out acting like that, that would give me pause. So it's really situational for me to the type of situation that you're talking about. Yeah.
And Jay, the atmosphere of the Derby, these are basically a lot of lightly raced horses. You covered so many derbies, you know it's a zoo, 100 to 150,000 people. The walkover, which is a phenomenal experience, but these horses have fans on the rail yelling and, you know, screaming, and these horses are supposed to hold it together on that walkover, go to what used to be a very crowded paddock, I think it's a little bigger now, and then come out on the track in front of 100,000, you know, singing, you know,
drunk,
singing, and it's a lot to ask of these horses what they go through.
It really is. I mean, you can't approximate this experience preceding it at all. They've never encountered anything like this before. And yeah, to your point, Bob, I mean, horses can lose it on the walkover, in the post parade, if they're not prepared for this. And I know, you know, most of the trainers will school horses during the week. They'll bring them over to the paddock and simulate saddling them. But even if you come over on Wednesday or Thursday, when they still have a good crowd there of like 30,000 people, it's not like tomorrow where there's 150,000 people and the noise is crazy and they're playing loud music, and it's just, it's sensory overload for them. And a lot of trainers I know will put cotton in their horses' ears to try and mitigate against the noise spooking them.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's fine. So her question was what is meant by lathered up, which is, I'm glad you asked that because it's a euphemism for washy, which is a horse that basically gets neck sweat. They get really sweaty, and that's how they...
It'll be like a whitish kind of foam.
The white foam.
Sometimes you'll see it between their back legs as well.
Those are kidney sweats.
It was a running joke in the press box. Jay and I worked in the Southern California press box for decades that Today's Racing Digest would have commentary on each horse, and oftentimes you would see, washy is okay.
But that's what it refers to. It sort of is an indication that the horse is getting nervous. That's sort of how they betray their nervousness, is they start getting this white foam on their neck because they're starting to sweat. So that's what, and so the euphemism for it is lathered up, right. But I'm glad you asked that because, you know, we sometimes do that, and it's bad that we do that and don't explain it better. So thank you for asking that question.
Yes, sir. Fastest horse. Well, Jay's covered a ton of them. I mean, I've watched and gambled on a ton of them. Really, trip is so important. You know, you don't see horses really steal off on a lonely lead anymore. You know, like a War Emblem year where he kind of put everybody to sleep on the front end. You usually get a very honest pace. And a lot of years, this race is surprisingly clean for a 20-horse field. You go through and watch the tapes, and it's like, man, I didn't see a lot of trouble in the race. Other years, it's a nightmare. Horses get, you know, squeezed down and take up, and some horses have lost all chance within the first 100 yards of the race.
I've seen plenty of horses just get, creamed the first eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile of a race, and they can't recover. One thing that I've thought over the years of, handicapping the Derby, going to the Derby, is that people tend to overanalyze the race and like really, the fundamentals of handicapping apply to the Kentucky Derby just like they do the first race at Santa Anita tomorrow. Pace, current form, is the distance suitable for the horse? And those are things that we do right on a daily basis with every single race. And I think a lot of times people, start looking at, years ago it was, does the horse have the dosage? And did he race it too? And they put all these unnecessary restrictions around things, and they're sort of, to me, getting away from the core of what you're supposed to be looking at, which is just the fundamentals that we do when we handicap every race every day.
Yeah, definitely. You're 100% right. And when you get away from that and you start to get into that mode, it's a lot on trip. The trip of the race is the most important, and who could navigate it. And you do tend to go away from your everyday handicapping and look into different angles.
It's become such an obsession within our industry, handicapping the Derby. It's the end-all, be-all. Our buddy Scott Shapiro, he gets so wound up about the Derby. I said, Shapper, this is the easiest race in the world to handicap. They only have 3 or 4 races on their form. It's not an easy race to handicap, but it's not hey, I'd rather handicap this race than a 12-horse turf race for older horses that have 12 races on their form. So, I think it's a fun race to handicap, but to Jay's point, treat it like a normal race.
Yeah, very much so.
Look for value. Look for, the best horse at the best value.
Right. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the positions scratched, does that help command it?
So he'll just move in one spot.
Do they move them all in closer?
Yes. So they'll move them.
There'll be no empty stalls, right?
Yeah, they move them down.
So he might be fifth then?
So he'll still be number 6 for betting purposes, but he's going to come out of the 5th stall now because he's going to.
More than any other.
I'm sorry.
The post position.
Perhaps I don't know.
It's one of those stats that people like to refer to that we would probably all think is pretty meaningless.
What was it, the 17? No horse won.
17 has never won.
Yeah.
And so that was going to be 6-speed, but now we've had 2 scratches inside, so now it's Golden Tempo, I guess.
But remember,
So
it does not change the number. Remember that.
Yeah.
It just changes the post position. Do not get swayed with the number, but they do move inside, yes. Once the horses, like Bob said, they scratch in the middle, the outside horses move in. Right,
Yes.
exactly.
But it doesn't change their betting number. Like if he's
Exactly,
betting number
that's the key.
6, he didn't now become number 5.
Right.
Right? Okay.
So-
yes, sir. So his question was, are there any rich strikes? Who was the improbable winner of the last Kentucky Derby that I attended, and it was not a cause and effect relationship. I had already decided to retire before that race, but that sort of was convinced me, like, all right, that's enough. I don't think so, but what do you think?
I don't think so either. I think the top end, the top end is pretty strong. You know, I mean, I could have never told you Rich Strike had a chance either. A horse who, by the way, drew in from the also eligible list. He was number 21, was he not, Jay?
Yeah, I got to tell you a funny Rich Strike story. So when I would cover the Derby for the racing form, I would spend some mornings up on the up in the press box, like on the weekend before when the horses were having their final workouts. And then, because I was there a week and a half before the race. And then as the week progressed, I wanted to get onto into the stable area to see the horses up closer, right? And then make the rounds and interview the trainers. So one day, 4 years ago, watching horses train, and this one horse goes by, and I'm like, wow, that horse looks good. Who is that? And I look down, and I'm like, oh, it's Rich Strike. And I just was like, he can't win. He's just, you know, off his form, he can't win. But it was funny because he actually looked good, but then you look at his form, and you're like, he can't win. And yet, so, I mean, when he won the race, I was like, you got to be kidding me. But that's, I don't think there's one of those this year, but I didn't think there was one of those 4 years ago either. Anybody else? So 4 years ago, a crazy, crazy, crazy long shot won, named Rich Strike, yeah. A horse that very few people thought had a good chance. He was a horse that came from way behind, and there was a really fast early pace, and the early leaders kind of tired out, and he came and won, and it was a trainer that had never won the Derby, a jockey who had never even ridden in the Derby. It was just a crazy, improbable long shot that won the race.
And this horse, by the way, never won again. I looked it up. He ran 5 or 6 races. Not that he ran poorly, because he did come back and run a couple decent races, but I think he went 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 to end his career after the improbable win in the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we made two fans, huh?
Thank you for coming.
Good. Thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
I think that's a good way to end it.
Yeah, let's go out on a high note.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys all.
Don't forget, come to
Duane.
the Race It Sportsbook. Enjoy yourself. Still got drink tickets. We got everything going on. We got the racing forms. We're going to have our selections in the rack. Remember, get a Rampart rewards card. Every $40 you wager in race is one comp dollar, which is still the best in town. So, you know, a comp dollar you could use at any of the food amenities in the hotel. Just come by, get yourself a Rampart rewards card. It's on the way to the Race and Sportsbook, a beautiful Caesars Resort at Summerlin Race and Sportsbook. All the selections will be posted. Bob sheet will be posted. I'll have extra selections as well on the sheet. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you. We can't do it without you guys.